9 times. Wolf Glick shocked the world of competitive Pokemon history. That feeling when you're down to your last Pokemon, timer's running out, and the entire crowd is against you? Wolf doesn't just know that feeling, he lives for it. This absolute madman has been terrorizing Pokemon tournaments for over a decade, and today we're talking about 9 times he completely broke everyone's brains with plays so wild, strategies so unconventional, that people literally didn't believe what they were watching. But real quick, I just have opened this new YouTube channel where I am going to be making videos on competitive Pokemon. The greatest moments, the greatest players and Pokemon who were deemed too overpowered in competitive Pokemon. So if you are interested in competitive Pokemon, then please subscribe and comment some historic moments in Pokemon VGC. But anyways, in this video, we're talking about a guy who turned Raichu into a world championship winning Pokemon. A guy who made his opponent so scared of a pink fairy squirrel that they rather forfeit than face it. Someone who won the largest tournament in Pokemon history, while his haters were literally chanting against him in the crowd. Before we dive into these absolutely unhinged moments, number 9, the Rookie. It's 2011, Wolf's just 15 years old, walking into his first ever regional tournament in Washington, D.C. Nobody knows who this kid is. He's got 0 experience in competitive Pokemon. The tournament's packed with nearly 300 seasoned players who've been grinding this game for years. And this rookie? He wins the whole thing, first tournament ever. But wait, it gets crazier. He doesn't just stop there. 2 months later, he drives to Indianapolis for Nationals and wins that too. Now he's qualified for Worlds, and at his very first World Championship, this complete nobody finishes 6th place. Veterans who'd been playing for years were watching this kid demolish teams like he'd been doing this his whole life. People in the community were losing their minds. Forums were exploding with posts asking, who is this Wolf Glick kid and where did he come from? Some players accused him of getting lucky. Others thought he had to be cheating somehow, but the truth was even more shocking. He was just that good. Natural talent mixed with 0 fear of the established players. While everyone else was playing it safe with standard strategies, Teenage Wolf was already experimenting with weird team compositions that shouldn't work, but somehow did. The psychological impact on his opponents was insane. Imagine training for months, and maybe years, perfecting your team, and then some high schooler shows up and destroys you with Pokemon you've never seen used competitively. That's exactly what happened. He beat players who'd been competing since the game started, and he did it with this casual confidence that made it look easy. And that was what really took off the legacy of Wolf in the competitive Pokemon scene. Number 8. The 2012 heartbreak that changed everything. Fast forward 1 year. 2012 World Championships in Hawaii. Wolf's no longer the unknown kid. He's 17, and everyone knows his name now. He's steamrolled through the competition all year, and he makes it all the way to the World Championship Finals. His opponent? Ray Rizzo, the defending world champion who'd already won it twice, the greatest player in the world at that time. And Wolf? He gets absolutely demolished. Destroyed. Ray's team was perfectly built to counter everything Wolf threw at him. The finals weren't even close. But here's where it gets interesting. This loss broke something in Wolf's brain, but in the best way possible. He became obsessed with understanding why he lost so badly. He spent months analyzing every single turn of that match, every switch, every move, every prediction Ray made. And this loss, it literally got immortalized in the Pokemon games. Nintendo added Wolf's team from this tournament into Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 as a downloadable challenge. Even in defeat, he was making history. The community was split. Some people said he choked under pressure, others said he just wasn't ready for that level of competition yet. But Wolf? He disappeared into his room and started building something nobody saw coming. He studied frame data and damage calculations, speed tiers, stuff that most players didn't even think about back then. This loss transformed him from a talented kid into a strategic monster. Number 7. The birth of Lightning Rod Raichu. 2016 World Championships in San Francisco. This is it. Wolf's redemption arc. He's been grinding for 4 years since that devastating loss to Ray Rizzo. And he shows up with Raichu? Raichu? The evolved form of Pikachu that literally nobody uses competitively. Here's the thing. In a format dominated by legendary Pokemon like Primal Kyogre and Primal Groudon, Wolf brings an electric mouse. But this wasn't just any Raichu. This was a support Raichu with Lightning Rod ability, Assault Vest for bulk, and a moveset that made 0 sense on paper. Fake Out for disruption, Nuzzle for paralysis, Endeavor to chunk health, and Volt Switch to pivot. The crowd thought he was trolling, his opponents thought it was a joke, until they realized what was happening. See, everyone was running Thunder Rests for Thunder Wave support to slow down teams, and everyone had Kyogre running Thunder. And Wolf's Raichu? It absorbed every single electric attack, redirecting them from his Kyogre and Rayquaza, while getting special attack boosts. Game 1 of the finals against Jonathan Evans. Wolf switches Raichu in to eat a thunder aimed at his Kyogre. Evans realizes he literally cannot use electric moves. The entire crowd goes silent. People are pulling out their phones, Googling what Lightning Rod does because they've never seen it matter in competitive play. The commentators are stumbling over their words trying to explain why this 20 base power Pokemon is controlling the entire match. But the real genius? Wolf only brought Raichu to about half his games. His opponents were so terrified of it that they changed their entire game plan just in case it showed up. They would avoid bringing Thundurus or avoid running Thunder on Kyogre or completely restructure their teams. All because of the threat of a Pokemon with stats worse than most middle evolutions. One moment that perfectly captures this. Semifinals against Marcus Statter, his own teammate who helped to build the strategy. Marcus knows exactly what Raichu does, has played hundreds of practice games against it. Still loses because the psychological pressure of having to play around Lightning Rod breaks his normal patterns. He second-guesses every electric attack, makes suboptimal plays trying to avoid the redirect, and Wolf capitalizes on every hesitation. The tournament organizers later admitted they never expected Raichu to even appear in Top Cut, let alone win the entire tournament. Pokémon officially distributed Wolf's Raichu as a mystery gift to all players with the code VictorianGene. First time they'd ever distributed a non-legendary from a championship team. Number 6. The timer stall controversy. Same tournament, but we need to talk about what really made people angry. Wolf wasn't just winning. He was winning in ways that made people furious. The timer strategy. Here's what nobody tells you about that 2016 finals. Wolf and Jonathan Evans weren't just battling each other, they were battling the clock. In Game 2, Wolf's up 2 Pokemon to 1 with 3 minutes left. Instead of attacking, he starts running out the clock, switching, protecting, making animations play out as long as possible. The crowd starts booing, actually booing. You can hear it on the stream, people are shouting at him to play the game. Twitter's exploding with people calling him a coward, saying he's ruining competitive Pokemon. Even some top players are tweeting that this shouldn't be legal. But Wolf? He keeps his poker face, ignores the crowd, and wins on time. Jonathan's Bronzong just sitting there, unable to do anything as the timer hit 0. The handshake after that game was the coldest thing you've ever seen. Jonathan wouldn't even look at him. Here's the thing though, Wolf had studied the rules more than anyone. He knew timer wins were legitimate. He'd practiced scenarios where he'd be up on Pokemon count with minutes left. While everyone else was practicing their attack combos, Wolf was practicing clock management. He turned Pokemon into chess, where tempo matters as much as power. The aftermath was insane. Forums were calling for timer rules to be changed. Tournament organizers had emergency meetings about whether this was legal. Some players straight up said they'd never compete again if this was how Pokemon would be played. But Wolf, he just won $10,000 and became world champion. Years later, he admitted that hearing the crowd boo actually pumped him up. He fed off their negative energy. He said knowing that hundreds of people wanted him to lose made him want to win even more. That's the mindset of a champion, turning a hate into fuel. Number 5. Creating Perish Trap meta. Now we get to the strategy that made Wolf famous, Perish Trap. This is 2013 through 2014, and Wolf's experimenting with something nobody's tried competitively, using Perish Song to force knockouts. Here's how it works. Mega Gengar uses Perish Song, which makes all Pokemon faint in 3 turns. But Gengar has Shadow Tag, which prevents switching. So Wolf traps you, starts the death timer, and then just protects and stalls, while you helplessly watch your Pokemon's death counter tick down. The first time he used this at a major tournament, his opponent literally didn't know what to do. The guy just sat there moving his hands over different Pokemon, trying to figure out how to escape. There's no escape. That's the point. The commentators didn't even know how to explain what was happening because nobody had seen the strategy in serious competition. But here's the really messed up part. Wolf would bring Pokemon like Gothitelle as backup trappers. So even if you somehow dealt with Gengar, here comes another Shadow Tag user. He turned Pokemon battles into psychological torture. You know, you're going to lose your Pokemon in 3 turns, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. The community reaction was absolutely nuclear. Reddit threads with thousands of comments arguing whether this should be banned. Some top players refused to practice against Wolf because they said his strategy was anti-competitive. Tournament streams would have chat spamming Wolfey can perish whenever he played. One tournament. I think it was a regional in 2014. Wolf faces this kid who'd been trash-talking Perish Trap online. The kid leads with his Mega Evolution. Wolf immediately traps it with Gengar, uses Perish Song, and the kid just puts his head in his hands. He knows it's over. 3 turns later, his Mega's gone, and he forfeits the match. Didn't even try to play it out. Number 4. The historic Clean Sweep North American International Championships 2019. This is the tournament where Wolf achieved something nobody had done before winning at every single level of official competition. Regional, national, international, and worlds. He was about to complete the collection. His team for this historic run, Primal, Kyogre, and Mega Gengar leading the way, and Rayquaza for speed control, Tapu Koko for electric terrain and pivoting, Celesteela for defensive bulk, and Incineroar for intimidate support. Not the team everyone expected, but perfectly crafted for the meta. The finals is Wolf versus Graham Amadei from Australia. Graham's one of the best players in the world, came prepared with the team specifically built to counter common strategies. Game 1 starts, and Wolf makes a read that even the commentators don't understand. He leads Kyogre and Tapu Koko, uses Nature's Madness to put Graham's lead into range, then follows up with Water Spout for the double knockout. Graham tries to adjust Game 2, leads differently to avoid the Tapu Koko pressure, but Wolf's already thinking 3 turns ahead. He switches Rayquaza in, sets up a Swords Dance, while Graham's forced to protect, then proceeds to Dragon Ascent through Graham's entire team. The crowd's going wild because they're watching perfection, every prediction correct, every switch optimal, every attack calculated. Final score 2-0, clean sweep, no Game 3 needed. His Celesteela lived Flamethrower from Mega Charizard Y and Sun. His Tapu Koko survived Earth Power plus Extreme Speed from Assault Vest Rayquaza. Every single calc was frame-perfect optimization. Graham said afterwards that he'd practiced the matchup dozens of times and won most of them. But Wolf played it literally perfectly when it mattered most. That's the difference between a good player and a champion performing under pressure when history's on the line. With this win, Wolf became the first and only player to hold titles at every level of competition. No one else has matched this achievement since. The entire venue erupted when he won because everyone knew they'd just witnessed history. Pokemon officially celebrated it as one of the most important victories in VGC history. Number 3, the Pachirisu. That changed everything. 2014 Worlds, Washington, D.C. Sejun Park from Korea shows up with something nobody expected, Pachirisu, an electric squirrel with stats so bad most people used it as early game fodder, and he wins the entire tournament with it. Wolf wasn't playing against Sejun, but he was watching like everyone else in disbelief. This little squirrel was destroying teams of legendary Pokemon. Follow Me to redirect attacks, Super Fang to chunk health, Nuzzle to paralyze. Pachirisu was doing things nobody thought possible. But here's what makes this Wolf's moment too after the tournament. While other top players were dismissing Pachirisu as a fluke, Wolf became its biggest advocate. He broke down the strategy on stream, explaining exactly why it was genius. His analysis video? Over 1 million views. He single-handedly changed the community's perception from "this is lucky cheese" to "this is brilliant innovation." Wolf explained how Pachirisu's Follow Me was better than Amungus's Rage Powder, because grass types and safety goggles users couldn't ignore it. How Volt Absorb gave it an electric immunity. How its support move pool was actually perfect for what Sejun needed. Wolf made everyone understand that any Pokemon could be viable with the right strategy. The craziest part? 3 years later, Wolf would cite this exact philosophy when he brought Raichu to win Worlds. He literally said in interviews that seeing Pachirisu succeed proved that weak Pokemon with the right support moves could beat legendaries. Sejun used an electric rodent everyone laughed at. Wolf saw it, understood it, promoted it, then 3 years later did the exact same thing with a different electric rodent. Without Wolf's analysis and support, Pachirisu might have been forgotten as a weird one-time thing. Instead, it became the symbol of creative team building in Pokemon. And Wolf, he took that lesson and turned it into a world championship. Number 2, breaking the game at Players Cup 2, 2020. COVID shut down all live events. Pokemon runs online tournaments called Players Cups. Wolf enters with a new team built around Coalossal, a Pokemon most players consider mediocre at best. Here's the setup. Coalossal has Steam Engine ability, which maximizes its speed when hit by water or fire. Wolf pairs it with Dragapult using Surf to activate Steam Engine, while Coalossal holds Weakness Policy to boost its special attack when hit by super effective moves. Suddenly, this slow tank becomes the fastest, strongest thing on the field, but the tournament format was double elimination, and Wolf loses early to Davide Carrere. He's sent to loser's bracket in round 2. Most players would tilt, maybe switch teams. Wolf? He goes on an absolute tear through loser's bracket, eliminating 7 players in a row. Grand finals. It's Davide Carrere again, the guy who sent him to losers. Wolf needs to beat him twice to win. Game 1 of set 1. Wolf's Coalossal gets both boosts active and one-shots Davide's entire team with Heat Wave. The Italian player is literally speechless. Game 2. Same thing happens. Wolf resets the bracket 2-0. Second set for the championship. David's prepared now. Leads differently to avoid the Coalossal setup. Doesn't matter. Wolf reads every adjustment, positions Coalossal perfectly, and sweeps again. Final score, Wolf wins 6-0 across both sets. Pokemon officially distributes Wolf's Coalossal to all players. The code? Victor Yenjin, the same codebase they used for his Raichu 4 years earlier. Wolf's the only player to ever have 2 different Pokemon distributed from championship teams. And finally, number 1, conquering the largest tournament in history. February 2025, London, England. The European International Championships. 1,400 players enter, officially the largest Pokemon tournament ever held. And Wolf? He's 30 years old now, been competing for 14 years. Some people are saying he's washed, that younger players have figured him out. He shows up with Perish Trap, again. The strategy everyone knows, everyone's prepared for, everyone has counters for. His team has Gothitelle and Screamtail for the trap, Koraidon and Fluttermane for offense, Amoonguss for redirection, and his signature Incineroar. The journey to finals is insane. He beats Luca Ceribelli, the reigning world champion, on stream. The commentary team is losing their minds because Wolf's using a strategy from 2014 to beat the 2024 champion. He eliminates Terran Birdie, who'd specifically built his team to counter Perish Trap. Doesn't matter. Wolf finds ways to win without even using the strategy. Finals against Dale Yeomans from the UK. The entire crowd of over 1,000 people is chanting for Dill. British flags everywhere. Wolf's getting booed during introductions, and then plot twist. Wolf doesn't bring Gothitelle or Screamtail to the finals. No Perish Trap. Everyone's prepared for it, so he just doesn't use it. Instead, he plays pure positioning with Incineroar, Koraidon, Fluttermane, and Amoonguss. Dill's completely thrown off because he'd practiced against Perish Trap for weeks. Game 3, final Pokemon, Wolf's Incineroar versus Dill's Goldengo. The crowd's screaming. Incineroar lands a critical hit knockoff. Tournament over. But wait. During his winner's interview, Wolf drops a bomb. He reveals he also won the Global Challenge online tournament that month under the username 33-4. 10,000 players competed. Nobody knew it was him. He used the exact same team for both tournaments. Won both. The crowd that was booing him? Now they're chanting Wolfey can perish. He turned the entire building of haters into fans through pure skill. After the tournament, Dill admitted he was so focused on preparing for Perish Trap that he forgot to prepare for Wolf just playing better Pokemon than him. The aftermath is still happening. Wolf's Perish Trap team has warped the entire meta. Every team now has to have an answer for Shadow Tag. Tournaments are seeing more Shed Shell items than ever before. Some players are calling for Shadow Tag to be banned entirely. Wolf's response? He posted a tweet saying, "I don't think I've ever lost a tournament with Perish." The entire community lost their minds because it's actually true. Every major tournament he's won with Perish Trap. 2016 Worlds, 2025 Toronto Regionals, and 2025 Europeans, all Perish Trap victories. Listen, Wolf Glick isn't just a Pokemon player. He's a mad scientist who treats every tournament like a psychological experiment. While everyone else is calculating damage, he's calculating how to break your mental. He's won with weak Pokemon, controversial strategies, and timer stalls that made people genuinely angry. But here's the thing. Every single strategy he's used has been completely legal. He doesn't cheat, doesn't exploit glitches, doesn't use anything that isn't available to every other player. He just thinks about the game differently. When everyone else sees Raichu as useless, Wolf sees an electric immunity pivot. When everyone else sees the timer as a necessary evil, Wolf sees it as a win condition. The man's got 10 regional championships, 3 international championships, 1 world championship, and he's the only player to ever win at every level of competition. He turned his YouTube channel into a 1 million subscriber empire by teaching people the strategies that beat him. He's simultaneously the most loved and most hated player in competitive Pokemon. And the craziest part? He's not done. At 30 years old, while most competitive gamers are retiring, Wolf's still entering every major tournament, still innovating, still making people question everything they know about Pokemon. He recently said in an interview that he doesn't have any crazy goals anymore. Winning Worlds was enough. He just loves playing. But somehow that mentality has made him even more dangerous. So next time you're in a Pokemon battle and you see someone running weird Pokemon with bizarre movesets, just remember, you might be facing a Wolf himself undercovered. Someone who learned that the meta isn't about using the strongest Pokemon, it's about using the right Pokemon. Someone who knows that psychological warfare is just as important as type advantages. Comment down below which Wolf Glick moment shocked you the most. Was it Raichu dominating legendary Pokemon, Timer stalling at Worlds, or maybe winning the largest tournament ever while getting booed by the crowd? And if you want more content about competitive Pokemon legends who changed the game forever, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell.